Thank Christ, figuratively speaking, the end is finally in sight. This is the final installment of the seemingly never-ending episode 291, in which I respond to Flat Earth episodes of one of my favorite online shows, the NonSequitur show. So, without further ado, here we go. And after I lay this one to rest, we can get back to the status quo, whatever that is, for the week in doubt. Thanks. So lastly, I'll play some clips from a debate between Aron Ra and a flat earther named Jeranism. I guess his real first name is Jaron. His YouTube channel is Jeranism. And most of you listening, if you consider yourself an atheist or you keep up with what's going on in atheist circles, especially on YouTube, probably well aware of Aron Ra. Very kind of high profile atheist, kind of looks like an evil wizard or kind of like a Genghis Khan kind of dude. But I don't say that derisively. I actually like Aron Ra. He can be kind of rough around the edges, no nonsense. So not, his personality might not be for everyone, but I personally do like Aron Ra. And I think, he does a really good job of promoting science and of, explaining evolutionary science in particular. But here we go. I'll start with the first clip here. And, let's give a shout out to friend and listener Matthew Scharnweber, who I remember told me about Jeranism before I actually ever encountered any of his debates on YouTube.
You want to kind of explain to the audience who you are and your position on this, and then we'll just go to Aron and then take it from there.
All right. Well, thank you for having me again. Hello, Aron. So I'm Jaron. My channel is Jeranism. Everybody knows that. Hated by many, despised by more. I think that I'm due a Nobel Prize though soon because I'm the one person who is bringing science and religion together in their hate for me. So, and what I say, because my beliefs are my own. I believe what I do based on my own research.
I don't know if he still listens to my podcast, but my good friend, fellow podcaster, Chris Webber, I'm gonna tease him a little. Jeranism almost sounds like if you sped up Chris's voice just a little. It'll be interesting to see if Chris ends up hearing this.
I believe in religion that I was raised under, and then I was able, despite that difficulty, to break from religion, and I became an atheist and a believer and backer of science. And so I wanted to be someone that was going to help other people find their way out of religious belief. But as I researched and studied more of the science, I started seeing signs that science followers were following a religion. And as the year or two after that, continuous research revealed that...
So there's that pattern again where it's kind of strange. It seems like these guys don't necessarily consider themselves religious, do believe in some kind of higher power, and they view science as being this kind of dogmatic religion. They all seem so far to have that in common.
Men are liars, and to trust them is futile. It's the worst thing you can do.
So that's quite a broad statement there. I think, so here's another guy that almost seems so skeptical. It's weird because usually I talk about skepticism as being a good thing, because you should maintain a kind of healthy skepticism and want to get to the truth of things. But some of these guys seem so skeptical in favor of their own biased worldview that almost borders on paranoia. So he broadly describes men, humanity as liars. And I think it is true that people in general are capable of lying. All of us have probably lied at some point or to some degree in our lives, whether it be a little white lie or to get out of trouble. There are some people out there who are habitual liars. There are some people who will lie to exploit or take advantage of others, or manipulate others. But I think most of us have some degree of a conscience, and when we do catch ourselves lying, we're not happy about it. And at least I know for myself, if I do catch myself ever lying, I say, why the hell did I do that? Sometimes you might catch yourself lying about something stupid. Not really anymore, but when I was younger, maybe like middle school age or something like that, like you didn't want to feel left out. So if someone said, hey, did you see that movie? You know, and a bunch of people are talking about it, maybe you'll be afraid to say no. So you'll say, I saw that movie too. And then right away, you're like, why the hell did I say that? I didn't see that. I never saw that movie, you know. But I do find that part of my own worldview that I've cultivated involves this kind of allegiance or almost, that this almost respect for the truth that I approach with almost religious zeal. You know, a big part of my personal worldview involves reverence for the truth. And in my personal life, I try to lie as little as possible. Once in a while, I'll catch myself in like a little white lie or something. And even that, I don't feel good about. And when I catch myself doing that, you know, I'll try to resolve not to do it again. Even though I believe that you can tell the truth in a diplomatic, gentle way where you're not going to hurt someone's feelings. You can kind of couch things gently. You don't necessarily have to lie to make someone feel better. And once in a great while, I'll still catch myself maybe lying to get at, you know, maybe you show up to work a little late and, you know, he makes him lie about making an extra stop or something like that, you know. And when I catch myself doing that every once in a while, it doesn't happen often, I'll feel like shit. And I'll resolve not to do that, you know, and to try not to do that in the future. And on this show, when it comes to searching for the truth regarding, you know, my worldview, and when it comes to conveying information via this podcast, I almost feel, for lack of a better word, like I have this sacred duty and responsibility to be as honest as possible. And if I do ever say something that's incorrect on the show, you can be probably 99.9 whatever or 100% certain that it wasn't intentional, that I either was confused or I misspoke. And you guys know how neurotic I am about it. I'll try to quickly as possible correct myself or offer some kind of mea culpa or whatever, because it's kind of my nightmare, my biggest fear doing this podcast, that I'm going to be responsible for accidentally putting misinformation out there. So I place a great amount of importance on the truth. And I would say that my allegiance to the truth is why I openly embrace an atheistic worldview rather than comforting myself with some kind of belief in a higher power, an afterlife that can't be proven. So yeah, I think in general, yeah, I mean, people do lie, but I don't think it's fair to characterize people in general as liars. An individual person is a lot more than whatever untruths or fibs or whatever, you know, they may have been guilty of in their lives. Like I said, all of us have probably lied to some degree, but there's also a lot of people in the world with integrity, and the two aren't necessarily mutually exclusive. You can be a person who maybe lied to get out of trouble at one point, or, you know, caught yourself in a little white lie to make someone feel better, or you felt awkward, so you lied and said you saw a movie you didn't see or whatever, you know. So you can be guilty of having done little things like that in your life. And at the same time, when it comes to larger things, having a lot of integrity and a kind of devotion for the truth. So you could be a scientist who almost views yourself as having this kind of sacred duty and responsibility to being as honest as you can with your research, your finding, your facts, and all that. And then going home at the end of the day and lying about not eating the last cupcake or something. You know what I mean? People are complex. We're capable of lying, but we're also capable of great integrity and being devoted to our work and wanting to be as honest, truthful, and responsible as we can be in regard to our work. So this idea that we shouldn't accept scientific truths because people are capable of lying. Once again, like in one of the last videos we watched, that's where things like repeated testing, peer review, and things like that come into play.
And I know Eddie Bravo the other night said something that I think describes my position to a T. He said he would rather be considered and called an idiot and a moron for not trusting liars than to be a traitor for defending them. And that's absolutely my position. And so as far as the flat earth debate goes.
And that's kind of funny. I'm a big Joe Rogan fan. And I have to say, I actually like Eddie Bravo. And so if you don't know who Eddie Bravo is, he's a personal fan of Joe Rogan. Oh boy, it's me, Phil, from the future, here through the magic of editing. I meant to say a personal friend of Joe Rogan, not a personal fan. Although they are really good friends, and I think they do admire each other's work. So a personal fan might not be all that wrong, but not something you hear colloquially every day. Anyway, I think he's a jiu-jitsu expert and instructor. I think he owns a bunch. I don't know if you technically call them dojos or studios, but he owns a bunch of them. And I think he also has a history as a comedian or a writer as well. And he actually seems like a really cool guy, like the type of guy you'd have fun hanging out with. But at the same time, he's a great example of someone who's so skeptical, it's almost borderline paranoid. He's a flat earther, doesn't believe we've gone to the moon. He's a big admirer of Alex Jones, bunch of conspiracy theories that he believes in. And he seems like it's odd. It's kind of ironic because it seems like he cares so much about not wanting to get duped or fooled that he's very unwilling to accept mainstream narratives about things, but then he'll latch on to these kind of batshit crazy ideas, you know? But he seems like a cool guy, and I actually enjoy when he goes on to Joe Rogan's show, you know, watching or listening to them battle over conspiracy theories. And it's funny, Alex Jones is actually a good friend of Joe Rogan's, too. And Alex Jones is another one, like, I don't believe a goddamn word he says, really. I think I don't know how much of it is an act and how much of it is real. I think Joe Rogan suggests that Alex Jones is pretty much the real deal. What you see on screen is pretty much the guy you hang out with, but that he's actually kind of a fun guy to hang out with, to drink or smoke pot with or whatever, you know. But I think, and I think, even though I think some of what Alex Jones says is extremely distasteful or, you know, pisses me off, like his suggestion that Sandy Hook was a hoax or whatever. And I think that even bothered Joe Rogan. But as just like sheer entertainment, you know, if you don't believe the crap he spews, he is kind of fun to watch. But anyway.
I have an issue with the heliocentric model. I do think it is a gigantic lie that has been told for I don't know how many years, maybe 500, 400, and that people have fallen for it due to indoctrination, due to education. And so, you know, I'm trying to get that out there, and I just wish that people could all get along and see that other people do have different opinions. And so it's okay to look into things without just calling others names. And that's basically most of the defending I get of the heliocentric model is just to be called a moron and I'm idiotic. And that's fine. That just doesn't do much for their position, as it just is kind of more.
You want to kind of explain?
Okay, so I actually kind of agree with some of what he says. I think he's right in a way that, you know, we should be wary of or on guard against becoming rigidly dogmatic. I do think it's all right to question how we know what we know. It's all right to want to investigate and double check scientific claims for yourself. I think that intellectual inquisitiveness and that healthy skepticism, you know, are a part of what drives people to learn and discover. But, you know, then there's taking it too far, being skeptical of good evidence, almost being too, as I've been saying, too skeptical, either due to a biased drive to preserve your own narrative or whatever. And I think that's kind of the key flaw with these flat earthers that we keep seeing, is that they're almost so skeptical that they carry it to an irrational extent and kind of tumble down the rabbit hole. So here's the second clip.
Okay. There's what we call atoms, but yes.
And there's what we call atoms. Yeah, you know what we call atoms? Atoms. And so we have atomic theory, but we also know that atomic theory, like every other scientific theory, is also a demonstrable fact. Theory of gravity, for example.
They're a demonstrable fact, these theories?
Yes.
Okay.
Every scientific theory that still exists today is a demonstrable fact as well. That's evolution, cell theory, germ theory of disease, all of them. That's a scientific theory, not mathematic theories.
So
Mathematic
here's
theories
the
are
thing.
something different.
And here's the thing that you don't. Your religion that you believe in.
I don't have a religion.
You certainly do.
I certainly do not.
You certainly do. Sure. This guy's not quite as insufferable as Nathan Thompson or whatever his name was. But yeah, this guy kind of gets under my skin too.
You have to believe things.
All religions are faith-based belief systems. I reject faith. I'm an epistemist. Faith is the most dishonest position it is possible to have. Any belief that requires faith should be rejected for that reason.
Hey, then you
I
have
do not
faith
have
that we
a
went to the
faith-based
moon.
belief in anything. Every religion posits a belief. Every religion posits a belief in a supernatural essence of self that continues on after the death of the physical body. I believe in no such thing. I have nothing in my perspective that meets the qualifications or criteria for a religion. Nothing.
Okay, do you believe that we went to the moon? You just said that you don't have any beliefs. You don't have faith in anything. You have to have faith.
I didn't say I don't have beliefs. We either
faith.
base our beliefs on evidence, as I do, or we believe some on faith, which means we're going to believe them anyway, even if they're not supported. And that's your position.
No. What?
Because you don't have any facts to support you.
Oh, boy.
I think,
For the record, I never asked to speak to Aron. Could care less what his...
Okay, so obviously you can detect my shoddy editing there just for the sake of full disclosure. Yeah, so we leaped forward a while.
Beliefs are. I don't agree with his beliefs. He's a completely trusting individual of men who are known liars.
Except that I'm not trusting and they're not known liars.
Oh, so you went to the moon?
I can prove that what I said is true, and I can also prove that what you're saying is false.
Okay, and you...
Yeah, there it is again. I mean, because people are capable of lying, humanity as a whole, I mean, we're just known liars, and we're not to be trusted. Just a rotten species that don't trust a damn thing out of our mouths. Like as I was saying, it's much more complicated than that. People are capable of lying, but people also possess a conscience. People can, and hopefully, and in most cases do, have a sense of integrity or place an importance on honesty. So just because people are capable of lying at times doesn't mean that the discipline of science is a lie or built on lies or something. It's ridiculous. I mean, how far are you going to take it? I'm sure his belief in a flat earth, he's not the first one to believe in a flat earth, so he probably got his views from somewhere. Maybe, I'm not saying necessarily in his case, in fairness, because not every flat earther agrees with Eric Dubay, but there's a lot of Looney Tunes characters out there like Eric Dubay that this kind of Pied Piper for flat earthers. And I'm sure he bases his flat earth worldview on certain ideas or concepts, probably even borrows certain things from science. Like a lot of these flat earthers will thumb their nose at science, but then they try to use science to explain why the flat earth is true or whatever. So, I mean, how far do you want to take it? You want to be so skeptical that you believe in absolutely nothing, not even, a calculator or a yardsticker to be trusted? How far do you want to go with it?
So you went to the moon to verify that its size?
But I can prove that, no, I didn't go to the moon myself, but I can prove that what you just said about me is a lie. I don't have a religion, for example. That's false. You're going to have to retract that and say, my mistake, you don't have a religion.
No, because what is the age of the earth? I clearly
do not have anything that could match any of the criteria for a religion.
What is the age of the earth?
I don't have any faith in anything, for example. Faith is a belief that is not based on evidence. My beliefs are based on evidence.
You're just calling your evidence, you're just calling this stuff fact, just because your religion promotes it.
Because you know what a fact is? A fact is a point of data that is objectively verifiable. Yeah. And that's the facts that I'm calling out.
And I think
what's the age of the earth? What's the age of the earth?
The age of the Earth is estimated to be something about 4.6 billion years old based on radiometric dating of mostly, what the hell is it?
And is that a fact?
Yes.
Is it a fact? Yes.
Okay, so does that require a faith in the fact
before we go, hang on.
No, faith is a belief that is not based on evidence.
Guys, before we go down this line,
Jared, trusting in evidence, that's something different. Faith is a belief.
I want to make sure we don't derail this discussion here.
Demonstrable evidence, things I can show to be true. That's what makes them facts. It's a fact when you can show that it is true.
You're just calling it'd be like debating a Christian who gets to call the Bible his facts. He's calling it evidence.
Jared,
I can call it a liar when he calls it a fact because the Bible is not a fact.
If I may, there's an equivocation.
And there's nothing in the Bible that constitutes a fact.
Aron, hang on. Hold on. There's an equivocation thing going on where you're using these words differently, And I'm well aware, the audience is well aware you're using these words differently, and it's not going to get you anywhere. Look at
That's why I'm giving definitions,
right,
and he is not.
Exactly. Yeah,
I'm giving the standard definitions, which I can prove are correct.
Yeah.
And he's using a definition that he's equivocating, that he can't show to be correct, and he's doing that just to straw man me, which is the projection fallacy that he's been accusing me of since he began.
He's using, Jaron, you're using stipulative definitions, which are fine, but you're not defining them, and then you're bringing him the argument that Aron's using his actual definitions that are what's commonly understood. This conflation of belief and faith is not an argument. There's no argument to be had there. It's just rhetoric. Can we try to...
Yeah, so there's Steve trying to be the voice of reason. Yeah, trying to draw some correlation between believing in the Bible and acquiring facts and knowledge via the scientific method. Absolutely ridiculous. And as they've said, he is equivocating.
Avoid some of the rhetoric and actually get to something substance, because for the last hour, no offense, I've heard nothing but rhetoric. And the audience has heard nothing but rhetoric. Is there anything more substantive that we can actually have a discussion with and you guys can actually talk about when it comes to the flat earth, and avoid the epistemic uncertainty and this rhetoric that is just basically saying, I don't know, but you know what, you're wrong. That's not an argument.
Well, let me ask this. Is there cases of science where there's been clear deception by scientists?
Again, not an argument.
I'm asking a question. How is it an argument?
The answer is yes.
Yes,
absolutely.
absolutely.
It's been exposed by scientists.
Okay, so
that's part of the peer review process, and this is why accuracy and accountability are so valuable in science, where they don't matter at all in religion.
Okay, so, I don't believe in religion. So my question is, when you talk about peer review like that, you're describing it as this holier than human kind of entity.
No, of course not. I didn't say anything like that. You strawman.
Watching the live chat, Steve, so you'll have...
So there, I jumped forward again. But yeah, so there, Jeranism is trying to say that peer review is holier than human, when it's actually a process or technique that tries to account for or make up for human fallibility. It's a way of saying, yeah, we do sometimes get things wrong. So, it's good to retest things. It's good to have peers try to see if our results can in fact be duplicated or if we made an error somewhere. So it's not like you have some globe earth priest, as they'd call it. A research article or paper comes before them, and without looking at it, they stamp it with a rubber stamp and say, it has been peer reviewed. No, the idea is to have independent scientists separately trying to find weaknesses in the other person's work or data, seeing if the results can really be duplicated or not. I mean, it should be a way of conscientious people who take their work seriously, testing each other's work for error. I mean, is there room for bias or human error? Of course, we're dealing with people, but repeated testing by independent scientists should make up for that. And if some bias does worm its way in, hopefully it eventually gets exposed.
I am. Go that route. But the only other one that I have is, why would there be a conspiracy in the first place? I guess they're asking like why that would be an issue.
I've said that before, that science did a great thing when they stole the idea of I don't know, not control of the earth, but when they took the control of the earth away from the church. They did a great thing, that we don't want to be a part of the Catholic hierarchy right now. So they did a fantastic thing.
I wish that we had taken control over from the church.
Well,
that would be wonderful.
Well, you kind of did, but then what happened was, if they would have realized...
Not in this country. Have you noticed what's going on in this country?
It's pretty sad. Yeah, it's like 78% of people think that they're going to heaven or something. So when you look...
No, this is really weird. Kind of like the last guy. There's this bizarre thing where, on the one hand, they claim not to be religious, but they believe in something, like some kind of higher power or designer. And they seem to have a disdain for the mainstream scientific worldview, because to them it suggests that we're just specks of dust in a cold, uncaring universe or whatever. And yet they seem to be all over the place. Like, on the one hand, he resents science for having kind of, I think, like a godless point of view. But then he kind of mockingly talks about 70-something whatever % of people thinking they're going to heaven, as if they're fools. Does he believe in an afterlife? I mean, and strangely enough, you can believe in God or a higher power without believing in an afterlife. I think like if you go back into ancient Judaism, there was the concept of Sheol, which almost seems, I don't know if it was meant to be taken metaphorically or not, but almost seems like it to some degree, where the dead are depicted at best as if sleeping. It's just this gloomy place. It's not like hell where, some people go to be punished. Everyone goes to Sheol. It's the abode of the dead, and they might as well not be existing. It's as if, like I said, at best they're sleeping. And there are certain types of religion that believe in annihilism, that at least, a certain percentage of people, they won't go to hell. They'll just be annihilated. They'll cease to be. We find that with certain modern Christian sects. And we also see this in the ancient Egyptian religion, where, there's the famous weighing of the heart ceremony. And if your heart weighed more than a feather, it meant it was burdened with sin. And it basically got fed to a monster, and you were obliterated. You ceased to be. But those who passed the test got to go on to the afterlife. And I think, was it the Sadducees, as opposed to the Pharisees in ancient Judaism, who didn't necessarily believe in an afterlife? So I don't know what the hell's going on with these guys. They seem to be all over the place. But I guess technically, in fairness, you can believe in higher power without believing in heaven or an afterlife.
Look at that and you understand that if they were wrong about something like the shape of the earth, that it would have been impossible for them to admit that, because it would be giving the reins back to the church. They would have basically destroyed all of scientific enterprise by admitting that. So they had to keep it a secret. They had to work it into their models and just go with it, because otherwise there would be no science today.
But the problem I have with that, Jaron, is that in order to do that, they have to change the laws of physics. They have to change mathematics. Oh, they absolutely do. That's an unequivocal reality. Laws of physics are not prescriptive. They're descriptive. We don't get to make them, right? We discover them and we formulate them, but we don't get to decide the rules of the universe. And the rules of the universe do not allow for the type of flat Earth that I've seen people, posit. But you haven't even posited us a model that we could even look at. And I don't think you know what a model is. A model is a representation of a system that has explanatory and predictive abilities. That's what a model is. I have not yet to see a model.
Okay, if you're going to contest the current existing model,
correct,
you have to provide another model that explains the data better. You can't not provide all and just say everybody's wrong.
That's actually such a great point. I think I hinted at that earlier, that a lot of these guys won't even provide you with a specific model. And in science, if you're going to say that the existing model is garbage, you should have some kind of coherent model of your own that you can offer in place of that one.
And that's the key. Describes it better and predicts better. What is it about a flat Earth that explains observations and makes predictions better than something like Stellarium? Stellarium is a wonderful program. A lot of people have it. It basically is based on a round Earth. Hang on. And I can look at. I can go into Stellarium and I say what day is this? Where am I at? And what will I see? Including
the universe is cyclic. It's a cycle.
Including things like eclipses. Now, why can't you do that with a cycle? Why can't you do that with a flat Earth? If I placed Stellarium,
do that with the flat Earth. What do you think?
Okay, so
give me the model.
What model for a flat Earth allows you to do that?
With the flat Earth, if you can do that with the flat Earth, then produce the model. Give me the predictions. Let's submit it to peer review.
Oh yeah, submit it to a bunch of guys who have built their entire careers around the globe. They're really going to accept
it to me. Submit it to anybody that can prove you wrong.
Exactly.
If you're wrong.
The thing is here,
and this is the way the peer review works. If we can't prove you wrong, we have to admit, hey, we tried and we couldn't prove you wrong. But I've already done that a couple of times this evening.
And people understand that if I were to prove that the Earth was flat, that it means that your whole idea of atheism is ridiculous, which it is.
Okay, first of all, it has nothing. We're not going to go down that road.
Hold on. He's just revealed his hand.
All right.
Why would my idea of atheism be ridiculous?
Because it depends on the age of the Earth. It depends on so many things.
Wait, atheism.
Yeah, so here's, the point where, yeah, like Aaron said, this guy is really showing his hand. And yet, why the hell does the age of the earth have to do with, whether or not there's a God? Once again, they seem to be favoring this kind of, even though they claim not to be religious, they seem to be gravitating towards or favoring this kind of young earth, biblical literalist, Christian type of thinking or whatever. Ancient Jewish thought suggests that the earth is flat with a dome-shaped firmament. The Bible doesn't talk about evolution. It talks about God actually making man and woman, breathing life into Adam's nostrils or whatever, creating Eve from a rib. No talk about the animals slowly evolving over millions of years or whatever. Then we have, I believe it was Bishop Ussher, who added up, or at least attempted to add up, the lifespans of the antediluvians, the patriarchs, or whatever the various people talked about in the genealogies of the Bible, and, adding up all those lifespans to try to get an age of the earth. And I think for the most part, that's where this ballpark idea of a 5,000 or 6,000 year old earth comes from. Bishop Ussher or whatever, at least in part. I mean, there might be other batshit sources that they use to try to calculate the age of the earth as well, or, basing things on scripture or whatever. So they claim not to be religious, but they're in favor of like an ancient Jewish model of the earth and of this kind of young earth creationist view of the age of the earth. But then claim that religion has nothing to do with it or whatever. I don't know. So this might almost be like this. They try to accuse science or scientists of being religious. This might almost be like this developing underground religion. It's this weird mishmash of like distrust of science married with, although acclaimed to be irreligious, married with concepts from biblical literalism and young earth creationism, almost like its own weird underground and scarily growing religion.
Depends on the end of the earth.
Why would a God have anything to do with my understanding of the age of the earth?
Yeah, I don't understand that one either.
You said it was with the flat earth, that it's a created entity.
You said if the earth was flat, then it would disprove atheism, meaning that it would prove the existence of a God?
How does that leap of logic work?
Well, that's what atheism is the position that the theists are incorrect when they claim there's a God.
Are they? How about theists, or what about deists?
Well, I want to stop for a minute, interrupt there. Earlier he claimed that atheism was ridiculous, or the atheist worldview is ridiculous. And once again, to go back to the agnostic atheist thing, I think being a hard atheist is kind of problematic. Like if you're someone who claims to know with 100% certainty that there is no God, then you're making a specific, definitive claim, that I don't think any of us can possibly know for sure. But the more, like I was saying, I think most atheists are probably technically agnostic atheists, thinking that scientifically we can't really prove or disprove whether or not there is a higher power. It's a problem of trying to disprove a negative and all of that. But I don't think doubting the existence of a higher power or an afterlife, especially doubting specifically a certain man-made concept of God, I don't think that's ridiculous at all. I think that's pretty damn sensible, probably about as sensible as it gets. And I think, unfortunately, we're kind of bound by the limitations of the human mind. There's some concepts we really struggle to wrap our minds around. And I think both religion and science, as I've said before, are kind of plagued with the problem of infinite regress. I think those of us with a scientific worldview, there's still things we struggle with, like trying to figure out what preceded the Big Bang or that initial hot, dense state. And of course, not everyone subscribes to the Big Bang model, although I think there's good evidence for it. cosmic background radiation, expansion, things like that, redshift. But I think there are some scientists who do still suggest a steady state theory or model, that there was not necessarily a beginning. And then there's the whole Lawrence Krauss thing, the universe from nothing. Is nothing really nothing? What we call nothing is really these kind of quantum, this brew of quantum particles popping, in and out of existence or whatever. And then on the religious side, it's kind of the God of the gaps. It's hard for us to wrap our minds around the idea of a universe that always was, or a universe that had a beginning. So people tend to assume there must have been a creator, and that explains it all. Okay? Then it's like, well, where did you create? Where did your creator come from? And then they'll probably say, well, he always was. How do you know he always was? Because your man-made holy book suggests it? And whether we're talking about the universe or God, trying to wrap our minds around either something coming from nothing or something that always was, it's very hard to wrap our minds around either. But anyway, I don't know why, I don't remember why I went down that particular road.
Are deists claiming there's a God?
Yes.
Okay. Then deists and theists are incorrect when they're claiming they're a God.
I don't see how one proposition has shit to do with the other proposition.
Atheism is the position that those who pretend to know what they don't know and stress facts that are not facts and claiming that there are gods when there's no evidence of such things, we say you can't make those assertions without evidence to back them.
Okay,
so
but then
you're
you're
saying
getting
that if the Earth was flat, then that would prove my position on atheism wrong. And the only way that atheism can be wrong is if there is a God. So you're saying that proving that the Earth is flat would prove there's a God?
Right, because the whole idea of
is God the only way that the Earth can be flat?
What?
Is God the only way that the Earth can be flat?
Yeah,
it certainly doesn't exist in a
okay, so I have to wonder why you said you didn't believe in any religion at the beginning of this.
Because I think all religions are made by man, just like the religion of scientism. Same thing.
Okay. There's no religion of scientism. That's a lie that is told only by theists.
I'm not a theist. So I don't know.
Well, you just told the same lie.
Are you a deist? Are you a deist?
And you apparently believe that there is a God, since you say that the Earth is flat.
Sure, but I don't like to say that.
And that it is proof that a God has to
exist. Hang on. You don't like to say
it, but in a God,
Jared,
right?
I don't like to say it because people like.
And you tell the same lie that scientism is a religion, even though it works exactly opposite of all religions.
Jared, you do believe God
exists? It is not faith-based.
So there, I don't know if you could catch it, because they're talking over each other, but he's saying that he doesn't like saying he's a theist because he's afraid people are going to twist his words and suggest that he believes in the Christian God. And he doesn't, it's like these guys in general don't seem to view themselves as Christians, but once again, they seem to gravitate towards Judeo-Christian concepts or models, like a young earth and a flat earth, with a dome-shaped firmament.
Jared,
it has to be verified and tested with critical analysis, not faith. And authority is worthless.
Jeranism, you believe a God? You believe at least one God exists, right?
You base your entire thing off of.
Jared,
what are you saying?
You base your entire beliefs off of authority and off everything.
I don't base any of my beliefs on authority at all.
So you have objectionable evidence for me to see that the Big Bang is real?
Yes.
Objectively verifiable.
Yes, objectively verifiable. It's called the cosmic microwave background radiation.
That's because
that and the cosmic redshift
and the redshift, cosmological redshift.
However, neither of those things has anything to do with the topic we're talking about right now.
Well, again, it's a rabbit hole after rabbit hole.
Neither of them.
Yeah,
neither of them has anything to do with the topic we're talking about right now.
They absolutely do because you keep.
They absolutely do not. They are a red herring to get away from this topic that you can't defend.
No. In a court of law,
we're talking about whether in a court of law we'd be talking about whether the Earth is a sphere, not where it came from.
You would prove credibility.
So we don't
and the
have
credibility
to worry about the Big Bang if we're talking about whether the Earth is a sphere.
The credibility shows
even if it was a steady state universe, the Earth would still be a sphere, and we'd still be able to verify that. Steady state, Big Bang doesn't make any difference. Either model, the Earth is still a sphere. Why can't you focus on that?
When's the last time a human being took a picture of the Earth then? If it's a sphere, I just want to know. I want to talk to a human being that took a photograph.
A human being took a picture of the Earth, that would be earlier this year. But that's part of the conspiracy.
Yeah, they've had photos from space that people have took for a long time. I have one.
Okay.
Yep, the photos are all fake. So, what are you supposed to say to that? And I know Photoshop, and believe me, I went to school. I almost sound like Trump, believe me. I went to school for design. I know about Photoshop. I know how convincing it can be if used correctly or deftly, But we've had pictures of the Earth that predate Photoshop. And we have numerous, both, as I was saying before, unadulterated photos of the Earth and composite photos of the Earth. So, you show them the pictures. Nah, that's not in keeping with my worldview, so they're fake. And so I have one more clip. I was almost debating whether or not I'd even play it, and I'm a little afraid that might contain a portion of the last video, too. I'm not sure. I was kind of blary-eyed when I was finishing up on the editing of all these.
Hey, guys.
I just want to throw this question out
Sure.
there. I mean, I've noticed that it's a very scary thing that's happening in this country right now. In that we used to have the middle of the road belief where everybody had the idea that, science was something that's real and demonstrable, and you'd be a fool if you were to reject science. But everybody also had this idea that when you die, you somehow go somewhere. And that's been changing. And statistically, right now, we have atheism on the rise in every state, while religion is in a state of decline in every state. But simultaneously, we also have religious extremism on the rise, and that's creationism and that's flat earthism, both on the rise. So the only way that those two statistics can be correct at the same time is if there's a division, and it's between 46 and 52% that people are walking away from science, walking away from religion altogether, and people are walking away from science altogether to religious extremism, including where you have to deny reality in favor of Scripture. And it's not just denying the age of the Earth, it's also denying the shape of the Earth. So I have to wonder, what is the appeal of this ludicrous religious belief that causes you to deny the reality that we can all demonstrate?
Aron Ra just summed it up beautifully there. That's just absolutely perfect. That's something I wrestle with. Even though I already waxed philosophical about why I think people believe in this stuff, still at the end of the day, you just want to shake your head and say, what the hell is the appeal of this thing? Why would you embrace such an absurd theory that flies in the face of reality?
Because it's not a reality like you would describe. You're describing reality as in we experience it. You will never, Aron, experience being
Aron.
Aron.
No wonder you can't get the shape of the Earth right. You can't pronounce his name correctly for the 50th time. Aron.
I can verify that to you.
Okay,
even for satisfaction, I can prove my position.
Okay, because people are living in a place where they've been told what exists outside of them, right? How far they can see, the universe around them, the planets that they see. People actually are trying to go to Mars, that they think it's a good idea to go to Mars, where you can't exist, there's nothing to eat, there's nothing to drink, there's you have to wear a suit. There's so much ridiculous nonsense that we should be taking care of the Earth first. And yet
we should be taking care of the Earth first. Yes.
Okay, and people are doling out $52 million a day to NASA to lie to your face. What has NASA done?
Nobody is doling out any money to have NASA lie to us, nor is NASA lying to us.
Yeah. Oh, NASA's never lied? Okay.
All right, so we're gonna be wrapping this up.
NASA is not lying to us.
We're going to be wrapping this up. It's not going anywhere.
Somebody asked me a direct question.
Yeah, Jaron,
I'll ask you a question.
Stop.
Where did everything come from? Everything came from nothing?
Jaron.
Everything came from nothing.
Jaron!
Oh, man, look at that screenshot. Look at Aron Ra. And I hope the audio levels aren't too off with this. I'm listening through headphones, and these clips are really loud. I'm trying to roll back the volume a bit, so hopefully you guys don't get your ears blasted when you try to listen. But there's what I was just talking about, like this whole problem with infinite regress. It's hard for us with our brains are pretty impressive, but even still, relatively speaking, with our little mammalian minds, trying to wrap our heads around something like, how can something come from nothing, or how can something always exist? These are hard concepts to wrestle with, but that doesn't mean that God did it. And it definitely doesn't mean we know, even for the sake of argument, if some higher power was responsible for all of it, that we know who or what exactly that higher power is. Who is this higher power, and why would it necessarily choose to create a flat Earth? That's pretty presumptuous, you know? Just a weird mishmash of bullshit.
Other discussions.
Okay, I'll tell you what.
No, nothing ever came from nothing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Everything did not
He's-
come from nothing.
he's
As a
just
matter of
trolling
fact,
at
I did
this
a video.
point.
Hello,
All right.
I'm speaking here.
But he's trolling you.
I
I'm not
already
trolling. I have
did
a
a
question.
video.
He said ask him a direct question.
Well, I can tell Aaron Ra, whatever, that he's getting really pissed. He actually yelled, kind of blew his top there, at Steve, the co-host / moderator.
I put a video about everything coming from nothing. No,
It was a good video,
everything
too.
did not come from nothing, and I've been very, very explicitly clear about that.
Yeah, he did. He
Did
did a
the
good
Big
video
Bang
on it.
create everything that is in one split second?
No.
How does it work?
And if you watch the
That's
video,
going to be
you'll
another
understand.
topic of discussion that's unrelated to this. He did a great video on it. If you want to go to Aron Ron's channel and watch it, his video on the universe from nothing, it was a very, very good video. I watched it prior to him even making it.
Killer jacket too.
So for
Killer
kill
jacket.
what his outfit, amazing. So
I'll
this is
watch it. Let me-
fabulous.
can I say one thing to leave? I'm just going to say that Richard Feynman said that I don't mind not knowing, and the mystery of it all is the best part, and I'd rather live not knowing than to live thinking I knew what I had, and I have the wrong answers. And that's what I feel like you guys all think. You're going to die
would
thinking you
would
had the right
take your
answer.
own advice.
So he's quoting Richard Feynman there, and ironically, he's trying to use that quote to bash people who embrace science. Well, I think part of science is admitting we don't have all the answers, and that we're looking for them, and we're doing our best to put the puzzle pieces together and acquire knowledge and accumulate data. And if new discoveries prove that we were wrong in the past, then so be it. You know, we're after the truth. And so believing in, or that's kind of a weird way to put it, believing in science, but embracing a scientific worldview, believing in the acquisition of empirical data, believing in trying to get as close as we can to an accurate picture of reality, that doesn't mean or entail that we think we know all the answers or claim to know all the answers. If we knew all the answers, there wouldn't be a reason for science to continue existing, because science is the search for answers.
Okay, great.
Instead of pretending that you know what all the experts do not know, or that you know somehow more than
If
the
I
experts
pretended
do,
that I
or
knew,
that
then
you
I would
know
give
that
all-
everything that we can demonstrate to be true is somehow false. I
And
wish
Tony,
that you had the integrity to follow the advice you're advocating.
Sure, I'm sure that an atheist would really just accept flat Earth based on a few things that I say in this
So
hangout.
again,
They'd
you
be like,
have
oh,
an
you get it.
admission that the only reason you're holding to the flat Earth is because of your religious belief.
I think that's what it boils down
Not a
to.
religious-
Yes.
Yep.
What?
I think
I said that I
you
don't-
literally
I-
boiled it down to the fact that if you're not atheist, you should accept flat Earth. That is a religious belief now at this point.
If you're not atheist, then you should accept flat Earth. I said that.
That's
You
what you're.
criticized atheists
yeah.
as being the ones that hold that the Earth is round,
Right.
and you said that the flat
Which-
Earth would prove a God.
Right, exactly. You just said
If
that.
you believe that the Earth
Yeah, I
is
did
flat,
say that.
then you believe in a God. You are not an atheist yourself.
So you are. I
You
mean,
know
you
that
you are a
you don't
theist,
believe
right,
in
Jaren?
religion.
You're a
I'm
theist,
not
right?
atheist.
You're a theist. You're a theist.
Depends. I don't. Theist is more describing like I don't know, the Christian.
Do you
I don't
do
know.
you, okay? Stop. Do
God.
do you believe that there's a divine being that we'll call a God that exists, that created the Earth?
There is a life-giving spirit. Yep.
Bingo. And obviously, you know, according to him, I think it's safe to infer that this life-giving spirit designed creation and specifically designed a flat Earth covered with a convenient dome just for us, you know?
We'll
So,
call that a
if
God.
you-
Oh, fair
if
enough.
you believe
Okay.
that any magical anthropomorphic immortal actually exists, then yes, you're
We'll call that a theist. Yeah, I'm okay with that.
Okay. Okay, but I mean, deism is really the belief that God does not.
That's fine.
interject
Deism
our
is a
life.
form
Okay.
of theism unless you're
Regardless,
dealing with
we don't need
classical
to talk
theism.
about the
Yeah.
subtleties. You believe in a magical anthropomorphic immortal that, by the way, does not exist, and you believe that for wholly vacuous reasons, and you have zero
What?
evidence to support
The evidence
that.
is all around you.
And by the way, I just
There's that a lot of people try to posit that the evidence for God is, you know, the fact that anything exists at all. And I do, as I was saying earlier, I take the phenomenon of existence, very seriously. By that, I don't mean I don't have fun. I think everyone should do their best to have fun and enjoy life. But by seriously, I mean, I think it's due respect. It's due serious thought. I think it's, we should take it seriously enough that we seek the actual truth. And one of the reasons why I'd call myself an agnostic atheist is because it is, as I was saying, hard for us to look at everything around us and try to figure out how something, quote unquote, came from nothing. But that being said, still, there is a dearth, a serious lack of evidence for the existence of some kind of sentient, personal creator God and the existence of an afterlife. If you want to say, maybe there's some vague kind of higher power out there, maybe there is, maybe there isn't. I'm still doubtful, but I'm not going to be arrogant enough to say I know one way or another. But if you want to say it was the God of the Bible or another specific man-made concept of God, or if you want to try to say the Earth's flat because you think that makes for a more convincing argument that a God must exist, I think that's bullshit. You're going to have to do better than that. But I think I'll probably leave it there. And thanks for listening, guys. I have no idea how long this episode or this two-parter, which it will most likely be, how long each individual part will be. But yeah, thanks for listening. You guys know the drill. Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. If you want to help the show out monetarily, you can go to patreon.com/theweekindoubt and support what I'm doing here for as little as 99 cents a month. All right, thanks, brothers and sisters, and until next time.